All right, we'll call this meeting to order. Bailey, can we get a roll call, please?
Commissioner Lorge.
Here.
Commissioner Finneman.
Here.
Commissioner Husnick.
Here.
Commissioner Huntash.
Here.
Commissioner Roberts. And Mayor Winnick.
Here. I ask everyone to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, I will look for an approval of the agenda. I'd like to add one item to it, though. Probably between 6 and 7, we're going to have a discussion for buy local.
Based on your comment, Mr. Mayor, I'd make a motion that we approve the agenda with the additional item.
And I'll second that.
All right, any other discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion carries. So that takes us to approval of the minutes from January 8th. Or changes there.
I move approval.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So Dan, do you want to take us into the city center lettering?
Absolutely. President's members of the EDA, at a previous EDA meeting, it was discussed adding some lettering to the outside of the building to help us identify the building as City Hall and the police department. So we've solicited quotes from two different vendors. Billy, can you cut me in? And the two vendors that we solicited quotes were from Solo Communications and Davco Technologies. There's three options that we looked at for the placement of the lettering on the building, and this is option B, which has City Hall and Police here on the left-hand side, and then the address 1408 on the right-hand side. Option A, which has 1408, basically flip-flop from the other way around, and then option C, which stacks with 2 on the left-hand side and then 1408 on the right. After I released the memo, I did have a quick conversation with Dave Floor, who actually solicited the quotes, and he informed me that during previous discussions, the preferred layout was option A, was what everybody kind of laid in on, was basically the address on the left-hand side there and City Hall and Police on the right-hand side. To get these installed, Solo Communication was proposing 643467 for 1-inch wide letters, and then Davco came in at 7500. Davco also submitted an alternate which allowed it to be 1/2-inch wide aluminum channel, and that one came in at 6500. One of the main differences between the Davco quote and the Solo Communications quote, I know lighting options at one point were discussed for the possibility of adding lighting to the sign. Solo Communications, they did not proceed with a defined lighting option. When they looked at it, they couldn't figure out how to do it based on what we were looking for. Davco does have a solution that would allow the signs to be lit. If they wanted to front light the signs, you're looking at 2800, and if you're looking at backlighting the signs, it'd be 2500. With the lighting options, they are also able to retrofit the existing fire department, so they would match. So if the lighting option is explored, those prices would also be applicable to the fire departments. We'd have consistency on both sets of signage. The Solo Communications quote, we actually looked for a bid from Vinco. They didn't give us a definitive on what it would be to light. They basically just said approximately $4,000. That was depending upon where we pulled the power from. So they gave us a $4,000 quote. However, Davco came in at $2,800 for front lighting and $2,500 for backlighting. So basically right now where we're at is if you wish to add the addition of the additional signage to the city center here, is to pick which vendor, which quote you want to go with, and whether or not you want it lighted, and we can go ahead and then get those quotes put into action. So at this point, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have on the quotes or the lighting.
Well, first off, welcome to the chair.
Thank you. It's a little bit different sitting up here than it is down there. But.
All right. A clarification, when he said it was either 25 or 2,800 to light or the sign, does that include the fire department?
2,500 each.
Each,
So it'd be,
okay.
if you just did the new addition, it'd be 2,500 for backlighting, and if we did fire department, it'd be 2,500. So he separated those up, but they're the same cost per sign.
Okay, all right.
In this particular case, you said you could backlight it, so that's a much more detailed proposition. That's somehow housing a conduit feeder somehow to the letters themselves, and then lighting somehow integral to the letters.
Yeah, from what I understand, the conversations I had with Dave is that the backlighting would be integrated in the build out of the sign. He's got a way to do that where it's backlit. The way he was described is if you've seen the Mr. $5 large burrito down here, the backlighting is the same as that. So he said the lighting would look similar if it's backlit, but it is integrated into the sign if we go backlighting.
And we can totally separate the two functions. The backlit obviously happens initially, but if they're going to front light from the canopy area, if that's the only one we light, then that can happen totally independent later.
As far as I know, they're separate, like it's an add-on. And if he's able to do the fire department, after the fact, I would assume that if we put the signs up and want them lit, they'd be able to add after the fact. I don't have confirmation of that. I didn't actually solicit these quotes, and I can definitely find that out though.
So we can front light this one. Can we front light the fire department one?
I believe so, because I believe the quote had both the option for front lighting on. Actually, the front light, I don't have a separate quote for the front, front light in the fire department, yeah, so both could be front lit or backlit, depending upon, he provided both options, so.
Well, I guess, first off, any discussion on like the preferred layout? I guess when I seen the city hall and police stacked on the corner, I thought that was more visible for people that are actually trying to find the building that don't know that it's this building. When you consider, basically 100% of the traffic is coming in through our main entryway here. I just, that one jumped out to me as being the most visible and obvious to see anyway.
I think there's nothing more powerful than the canopy to draw your attention toward a composite lettering over there, and the one item that can be isolated, the address. I'm just locked into that one as being the best graphic solution.
This one.
Is the canopy powers that whole story. It's a horizontal kind of spread out of letters, and the identity numbers stand to the left as just one little bullet. And so to me, I'm locked into this one.
And in conversations with Dave about this, and I wasn't aware of this when I compiled my memo, was that was the preferred option going into it I think he convened some staff recommendations at the time and some other kind of just informally kind of floated those around, and that kind of everybody kind of locked in on that consensus. However, I wasn't aware, that's why it was not included in the memo.
Sure.
I'm not sure how powerful the lighting idea truly is. I guess I could see really holding right here at this level and matching the fire department and seeing what the future brings in case there's a deficit of some.
And just so everybody's aware too, and when you come in early in the morning, there is enough parking lot light that does actually illuminate. These are just not probably as bright as what you'd have at the backlit or front lit, but there is, if you come in 6 o'clock in the morning when the snow is out, especially in the wintertime, that is still visible. There's enough ambient light coming from the parking lot that there is it's not completely dark.
Well, I know when you leave here or, wintertime, you cannot read the fire department sign at all. I mean, it's just not visible. People looking for the police department, I think, as a public service, I think it's important to have that lit. If it's one person a year or one every other year in an emergency, that having that lit would help. It's definitely worth what it costs, and to do it now, I guess the question would be is just, front light or back lighting it, but I really think that it needs to be done. Probably will end up retrofitting the fire department too after we see what this looks like, but
that'd be backlighting. The fire department.
Well, and just as a...
Is there some premise in which you can front light it, ground?
Yep.
Well, I think from what you presented that front lighting, if we were going to backlight it, we'd have to order the special letters now.
They'd be able to retrofit, according to
They
this,
can do either one.
according to both, they can backlight both. And just another decision point on that is that our existing, I call it the flower snowflake design that we have on there, that is already backlit. So that's a backlit one, not a frontlit. So if you want to go consistent, see all the way across, the recommendation probably would be to backlight them all, so that way all these signs going across the front of the building would all be consistent.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I agree, then backlighting on them and. So we will, any further discussion or
Defer to the
motion?
majority view on this.
Yeah,
In terms
I
of
don't-
lighting or not lighting.
Yeah, as far as, the lighting, I don't know how much it would run, or cost to run it, but they're probably LED type lights and that kind of thing, probably pretty cheap, so if we're gonna do it, I think we should just go ahead and get the thing backlit. That's just my opinion.
So there'll be some kind of, depending on where you grab electricity, there'll be some kind of, maybe you're gonna be lucky to be right behind the signs.
Yeah, I mean, according to what I heard was basically he had figured out a way to do so without having to run conduit out there, and would make it, would not have, the conduit channels through the things. It wouldn't be very apparent. It would be integrated into the building, so it wouldn't just, stand out. That's what we were told, so.
But there's gonna be this chaseway, or what do you wanna call it, this runner that connects them all. So electricity makes it to all the light letters. So there's gonna be, like any kind of box sign or something, there's gonna be a conduit that's gonna, some kind of raceway that's gonna connect.
Correct, and I don't know how that, from what I was told, that wouldn't be, it wouldn't be an eyesore to basically light them. It'd be hidden in a way where it wouldn't be visible or extremely visible from the front.
Imagine you paint it to match the brick and you
Yeah.
hope that just doesn't show up much.
Yeah, correct.
Well, unless that's above the parapet and they're just going on the roof with it. I don't know how
But
deep.
still, you
it is
gotta
up
get to
there.
every letter.
Yeah, it has to go.
Well, yeah, but if they were gonna go through the.
It takes some
mall
kind of
both.
connection of some sort.
All right, I'll look for a motion.
Well, I'd make a motion that we use the depiction that's on the screen at the moment, and with the backlighting, that we proceed with that.
I second
And-
it.
yeah.
Oops, I'm sorry, you weren't done.
The only other thing I'm gonna ask before I finish my motion is, are we picking which contractor at this time? No.
Yeah, if you're gonna go backlit, you'd be going with Davco.
Okay,
At this
that-
point, because
all right.
he has the lighting option. The other one we didn't have. The only one question, if you go with Davco, would you want to go 1-inch or half-inch aluminum for the actual construction of the letters?
Well, I think we need to stay consistent with what we already have out there, so that'd be my motion.
Which I believe is the 1-inch that we currently have.
Yeah.
What's the difference in price for the
Not very much.
half-inch versus 1-inch?
Half-inch is $1,000 less for the sign construction, and that's just due to the reduced material cost. But I believe the fire department is already 1-inch, which is why we had the 1-inch quoted originally.
Am I seeing a graphic of 1 inch?
I believe that's what's represented up there, correct?
Well, they both look the same, right? It's just the thickness of the actual material that they cut them out of.
It's the width of the character, I think.
Yeah, I think.
No, I don't.
Oh, it is, it's
It's how thick they are.
Oh,
The
okay.
depth.
Oh, that's what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, well, so the character's width wouldn't change then, huh?
Yeah, they're either gonna cut them out of 1-inch thick aluminum or half-inch thick aluminum.
Yeah, I misquoted.
I think that's, because they gotta be probably 3 inches wide or more looking at it.
Yeah, they have to be consistent too, no matter what we do there.
So you wanna stay with the 1-inch thick lettering?
If that's what we're using on the other part of the building, I think we should.
Okay,
Yeah, that'd be part of my motion then.
sounds good. So we have a motion. Did we get a second on that?
Yeah, we did.
All right. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Mr. Stegner, did you want to present?
I would love to.
Thank you.
Hello, EDA President Winnick and EDA members. My name is Steve Stegner, and I have been a business owner in Forest Lake going on 30 years here. And Dan, if you would go ahead and hit the video right here, we're going to have a 90-second video, and then I'll go ahead and talk a little bit about what we're trying to do.
1 second, I gotta get the audio.
I guess it's Mayor Stegner. Sorry about that.
I'm gonna have to hook up to a different input because it won't let me pull audio from up here.
Okay.
Just 1 second.
Well, then I'll continue talking. We'll just hit the video when you guys have that ready. I'm only going to take a couple minutes of your time here. I want to see businesses in Forest Lake flourish. And local businesses are the ones who power the things like the Rotary clubs, the Lions clubs, our churches, and the other nonprofits in our community. I am a member of the Forest Lake Chamber Buy Local Committee, and that's what I'm here today to talk to you about, is the new Buy Local Committee and what we're trying to accomplish. The Buy Local Committee in Forest Lake has a history of starting and stopping and starting and stopping and starting and stopping. And I think the reason for this is we have a bunch of people with some good ideas. They decide to put in a bunch of coupons and get all the businesses together. They send it out once and then it's kind of done. Are we ready, Dan?
I think so.
Perfect.
Oops.
Small businesses have always been the backbone of the American economy. In fact, independent retailers generate more than 3 times the direct local economic benefit of big box stores. At Boomerang, we're on a mission to build a stronger local economy by supporting the businesses that fuel your community. Boomerang is a new kind of loyalty app that rewards you for buying local. Every time you shop at Boomerang, you earn rewards that you can redeem to buy whatever you want from the businesses in the Boomerang network. Boomerang is simple. Just use the Boomerang Rewards app when you shop with small businesses right in your neighborhood. You'll instantly earn boomerangs, rewards of up to 20% of your purchase that can be spent right away or saved up for later. Redeem your boomerangs to buy the things you want at any business in the network. Download the free Boomerang Rewards app today to discover great small businesses right in your backyard. Boomerang means more new customers, more foot traffic, and local word of mouth for the businesses you love, so they can grow, strengthening your local community. And you'll get rewarded on the spot for every purchase you make. Join us for the Shop Local Revolution. Boomerang. Shop local, earn it back.
Okay, thank you, Dan. So the Forest Lake Chamber, working with the Forest Lake EDA and the Washington County EDA, has an opportunity to help our local businesses grow. And when local businesses grow, they employ more people and should probably expand. And when they employ more people, those people have more money to spend in our local community, and it just spirals us into success. So Boomerang that you just saw there is an app-based platform that's specifically used to help grow local businesses and keep all the rewards locally. I wasn't prepared here to talk completely about the Boomerang program, just to kind of pique your interest on it and see if we should move forward if there's some interest from the EDA. One of the nice things about this rewards program, as opposed to the coupon sheets that in the past we've given to businesses, the businesses, when they sell their products and services to the community is paying full price for that, and they're getting a bonus reward coming back to them, which really maintains the owner's margin on that sale. So the business owner is getting the full boat for their product or service, and they're giving some rewards back, and those rewards can be used with other businesses within the network. The Chamber is hoping to partner with the Forest Lake EDA and the Washington County EDA to launch this program in Forest Lake. I will be coming back to you to ask you for $5,000 in funding as soon as we get those marketing details in place, so you actually know what we're going to be spending the money on. But I just wanted to bring this forward, let you know this is what we're working on. Do you have any questions of me?
Can
Jenny.
you explain how that works if they get, who's paying for the rewards?
Well, the business that is giving the rewards out is paying for them. They are paying for them in a digital reward or a digital currency. So if you went into my business and you spent, let's say, $50 and you had a 20% reward coming back, you would be giving me $50 in cash, and then I would put in your digital bank on your iPhone app or your phone app 10 Boomerang rewards that you could spend at the pizza joint or at Stella's or at the ice cream parlor, or you could bring them back to Rapid Press and spend them there. The important thing is because we're all in the system together, these rewards can move from one business to the other and back and forth, because if I have a relationship with you and you only have a reward with me, You're not helping the other businesses in the community. It's just you and I doing business back and forth, and either I give you a coupon to come back or somehow get you back in the store.
Okay, so it's like a discount for the buyer
Yes,
that the vendor's paying for.
Yes.
Through these. So say the vendor is a big ticket item.
okay, yep, so Boomerang has some limits on that. You can only have a maximum of 100 boomerangs per transaction. So let's say you're going to the orthodontist and you decide you need Invisalign, and that's a $6,000 deal. You can only use 100 boomerangs that you have in your account or receive 100 boomerangs as a reward. You can't like store them up and have these big major purchases that would negatively impact the small business.
Okay, and the business itself that's selling you this, maybe a $400 item.
Yes.
They're not giving you a percentage of that $400 in boomerangs.
They are. They're giving you whatever percentage is established. It's probably 20% or 15%. So they're giving you back in rewards that you would either spend back at that business or a different business.
Okay, sorry, gang.
No, that's fine.
So my concern, it's not a concern, it's a question, is if you get a one-time purchase of, say, $500.
Yes.
And you get, say, 10% toward
Sure.
your rewards, but you're not intending to go back and buy another $500 product from that vendor, doesn't that vendor lose out if he's paying out toward people collecting from other vendors and not coming back to him?
But he's probably got that $500 sale, or theoretically, because they knew he was in the network and they could get rewards. So they came in just to purchase that product and possibly get rewards. You know, in my business, the acquisition of new clients runs about $70 to acquire a new client. So something like the Boomerang Rewards is really quite effective to bring in new clients into my business.
Can they opt out then, if they find that this is detrimental to their business?
Of course.
And not
Yeah.
advantageous?
Yep, they can opt in and out at any time.
And just to clarify, and maybe to compound on that, the customer coming in to buy that $500 thing may have 50 or 100 boomerangs already, which they could cash in on that $500 purchase, correct?
Yes, they could. Yes, they could. Yes.
So like one boomerang is like $1, is that how
Correct.
it works?
Yes.
And then for that vendor that takes those, that ends up translating into cash again, right, or whatever, through the Boomerang app?
It counts as income, yes, to them.
Right,
And they
okay.
get, basically,
Like a PayPal or something like that.
yeah, well, actually, they put boomerangs in their account to give out. It comes and goes. The boomerangs flow in and out of each business.
Okay.
And ultimately, at the end of the day, the whole idea is to grow your business by getting in new clients that are using this Boomerang app on your phone. One thing I will mention is Boomerang has a really sophisticated back end of the app, which allows business owners to check their account and see how many people actually are using boomerangs, how many they're typically spending at a time, whether that person signed up for boomerangs at their business or another business, and it actually separates them also. So it talks about how many of your clients that you signed up are using boomerangs compared to the volume of boomerangs coming in from people who signed up elsewhere. So the whole idea is not to necessarily reward the same customers you have. The whole idea is to reward your customers, but also grow the network so people can, new customers can find you and a reason to shop at your spot, and hopefully shopping locally.
Is there any cost to the purchaser, the consumer?
There is technically not, but it's kind of a way. So how they do it is, it does cost the individual $20 to sign up for Boomerang, but they get 20 Boomerang rewards. And in my business, we give them that $20 discount on their bill right away. So the consumer pays $20, they get 20 Boomerangs. When they're at my store, because presumably I sign them up, they can spend them right away. So ultimately, it's a wash. They've gotten $20 in Boomerang bucks that they've already spent in my store.
And what is the cost, or is it too early to ask, what's the cost to the vendor?
The cost of the vendor, we're still working that out. What we're trying to do with the vendor is we're trying to do the first few months at no cost where we ramp up the number of people in the community that sign up and the number of vendors that we have, so these vendors can see the velocity of these boomerangs traveling in and out, so they can decide if it's a good value or not before we charge them anything. So that's kind of the idea, is to start out at a no-cost platform to the businesses, and then, decide now when that cutoff date is, and they'll have to start paying. They're gonna know before we launch the program if they're gonna get 3 months free or 4 months free or what that is. And then generally speaking, it's about $70 a month just for the businesses to keep that app. But like I said, I wasn't here to talk about the whole thing, but so if they sign up a customer for $20, 10 of that goes back to the business, and the client gets 20 boomerangs, but $10 goes back to the business to kind of help them sign up more people as an incentive. So if they signed up 6 people a month, it pays for their $60 monthly service. If I'm not explaining myself well, I apologize.
Is there any cost per transaction, or does the 70 a month cover everything?
The cost of the transaction is a credit card. It's a good question, Jenny. The cost of the transaction is a credit card transaction fee of 1.95%. And those of us who pay merchant service fees, you're usually about 3% or maybe even more. So you're actually getting a little bit better value. So when you buy something on your app, it's just like going through Amazon. It charges your credit card, and then that next day your merchant will get that money in his account. But you are paying a 1.95% merchant transaction fee for the credit card. So ultimately, it's just a tiny benefit for the business. Instead of paying the 3%, they're down to a little less than 2%. Yeah, you have a lot of questions.
So to give this platform strength,
Yes.
you have to have buy-in by the businesses
Yes.
and buy-in by the public
Yes.
for the app. And is that a tremendous effort? Does it start slowly over time and build, or is this something you really advertise strongly?
Well, that's why we're going to be coming back to you guys and asking for some funding along with Washington County, is so we can hit it really hard, because there's nothing worse than having it kind of peter out. So we want to have a very strong launch with a number of businesses and a lot of people involved, so we can start using it, and then it'll gain momentum. One of the neat things that I didn't tell you about this program is every time you make a purchase using boomerangs, it gives you an option to share it with your friends on Facebook. You click one button and you get an extra boomerang. So they're kind of bribing you to share that on social media, which we hope that will catch on. Also, behind the scenes, Boomerang will also survey our people who are in the program, and they'll ask who else in your community would you like to be involved in Boomerang, which is really powerful, because then they can go to Aqua and say, 47 people this week said they really wish Aqua was in Boomerang, and then hopefully they say, what's Boomerang, sign me up. So there's a lot of things that are happening on the back end, so it's kind of a sophisticated app.
Excellent. Now, the Boomerang community, or our community, if
Yes.
we participate in it, but I'm assuming the Boomerang obviously is established in other areas. So does that?
They're all transferable. So if we have Boomerang in Forest Lake and you happen to be in Hudson, Wisconsin, or Minneapolis, any of those vendors that are there, you can use your Boomerangs freely at those places. Sure. The nice thing about it, though, when you open up the app and you're in Forest Lake, it has a proximity detector. Yes, it's stalking you. It lists all the businesses in Forest Lake closest to you to furthest away. So if you're standing right here and the dollar store happens to be in there, the dollar store will come up first, and then it'll go out. And you can, of course, search by restaurants or gift shops, whatever you want. It's pretty easy that way too.
All right, well, thank you for the introduction. Any
Okay.
other questions?
No more questions? Okay, I'll be back as soon as I have a marketing plan so we can flood Forest Lake with the good news. Thank you.
All right. And Donovan, do you want to take us into the comp plan?
Sure. Thank you. Chair, members of the EDA. Bailey, can I get some video? If you recall, last July, Jane Kentz here from Bolton Mank came and brought an introduction to the comp plan update. I'm here to give you the update from that update, and also have a few other agenda items. First is, looks like we'd scheduled a February 27th EDA open house to discuss in a public setting, the economic competitiveness draft chapter. That's looking to be also a city workshop night, unfortunately, city council, and we'd like to perhaps reschedule that to March 6th, which is the following Tuesday, with your consent. Is there a, but I also want to get the EDA's.
I mean,
input on that.
it's a EDA, or?
Well, hopefully you'll come support, you'll, provide the input. I'm also seeking tonight to provide, ask for your input on this. But seeing as it is the economic competitiveness draft chapter, I wanted to, involve the EDA in this.
What would the hours be for the open house?
6 to 8 p.m. here in the upstairs community room.
Is this beyond the other we've already had one, but the other two?
Yeah, and we're having another one tomorrow night. That's housing, community facilities, and water resources. Next week is parks, and so this would be the fourth of the series.
Okay.
Would we be able to just maybe move it to like 5:30 on the 20? I mean, I just don't want to keep pushing these out any farther instead of doing it at, because the other meetings at the workshops at 6:30, right?
Yeah. And the other thing too, with just on the formatting side of this, is that if you wish to just give feedback, we do have an electronic feedback survey option as well that'll be promoted. So there's still opportunities. If you can't make the actual open house to offer feedback, there is going to be an online survey as well that you could review the draft materials online and submit electronic feedback. So we'd still be able to collect feedback.
And actually, I think we could do both the council workshop that night and have the open house. I mean, just.
Yeah, we just would need to move the workshop in here, which wouldn't be that, because if they're upstairs in the community room, we either have to find our spot for the workshop, but that wouldn't be.
What's the Forest Lake room or
Forest Lake
something
room
for
would
the
work,
open
yeah.
house?
Or no, for the joint workshop will fit in the Forest Lake room, there's enough space in there.
Either way. I don't know, I hate to keep pushing them off. We just, start getting into summer, everything gets busy and.
Yeah, I mean, because we'd like to take this to public hearing in, ideally April, so we want to make sure we get those meetings in, so, yeah. So we'll make arrangements. Next, I wanted to say that, yes, we are developing a draft chapter for the economic competitiveness. Part of that is looking at additional areas that we would zone for commercial in the future land use plans. So before you is the current 2030 plan. What you can notice on, what I'd like to point out here is how in general, and this is not the zoning map, this is the future land use map, that the tan represents residential, different densities, and the red or red striped or the purple represent industrial or commercial development, and with red being commercial. So that's the 2030, that's existing. And then what we've produced so far, and this was the subject of one of the open houses last, on January 30th, was this draft future land use plan map. So if you notice, this has a lot more red. We've identified more mixed use areas. That's, again, this kind of the red and tan striped. This is general business along here, along 61. And there's two places where we have expanded this, the commercial area in general, and that is, this is up here along Broadway, which currently is the Broadway Commercial District zoning, and it's not very deep. And so in response to some internal discussion with the council members as well, we're seeking to expand this to go all the way up to that's 2nd Avenue Northwest. And then, but a little bit further on the south here, but not much. But again, just trying to increase the depth to match the the footprint of more newer commercial development, provide more redevelopment opportunities.
Say, Donovan, can I interrupt just for a second? That's just up to First Avenue Northwest, isn't it? Because there's only 2 streets, or it's only 2
Oh, it's only
blocks
First,
long.
okay, yes. Okay.
I just wanted to clarify
Yeah.
that. Sure.
That makes kind of a harder, more defined edge between the two. But the task force that was helping draw these lines didn't see the same kind of compelling reason to go on the south side down to the First Avenue Southwest. And then what I'd like to discuss with EDA here is this area. It's kind of hard, a little bit more difficult to tell on this with this coloring. Is on the southwest, if you can see, the southwest corner, the draft map has this zone industrial. And this is, 175th Street all the way to 180th, everything west of Highway 61. This is an attempt to expand the commercial industrial land base, and of course the tax base of Forest Lake. Of course, this is contingent on getting some sort of freeway access down here to the 35E, and that's an effort that we're being in conjunction with, Hugo, Columbus, and Oka County, and Lino Lakes, since Interstate 35E does not pass through Forest Lake down in this area. So that'd be a multi-jurisdictional effort, but that's but we need to draw some lines on a map to show that we're serious, that we want a reason for that freeway access. And so I'd like to kind of get the feedback from council right now. And of course, this was something that was part of EDA, but this was part of the open house, and some of the property owners did show up, and they were rather concerned that, they were thinking that maybe an asphalt plant or a trucking yard was going to pop into their backyard, and, like this was a plan to do that sort of development, next to their, horse pasture. Of course, had to just, say this is the 2040 plan, and that any large development like that would only occur if there was infrastructure expansion, city water and sewer, and the roads that could accommodate the kind of vehicle traffic that sort of use would generate. But seeing that we almost have daily conversations with potential developers in the Broadway area, and we seem to really just kind of no room in the inn up there due to wetlands, due to people just want to be within a certain proximity of the interstate. And so this is an attempt to say, all right, look forward to the future, 2040. Where can we find land that's somewhat proximate to the interstate? And if, a series of events occur, we could see that sort of, commercial industrial development down here.
Thank you, Donovan. Couple of questions. The purple that you're showing there, what designation is that right now?
It's industrial.
Right now.
Yeah, right now. So
Right.
That's the proposed use for it, right?
yeah, and that's meant to be industrial, like the kind of low single-story density warehousing, could be, some manufacturing, could be a trucking yard.
I personally, to me, that's business area. If we get exit off the freeway, last thing I'd want to see there really is industrial or industrial getting built now. I mean, I think if we're looking to the future, that, business, business park, something, that zoning, but I don't see industrial for that zoning down there.
Sure. What we do have, if you notice, there's the red. I mean, we haven't really written out the categories of these. This is just kind of the broad brush. This red is general business. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's more in line of what you're thinking is, so we don't.
Well, there was a designation if you scroll back a little to the color codes, because there's another just right above that industrial. It's called business park.
Sure.
But I believe that area, especially as you get closer to the freeway, would be looking more towards retail. and then business along there. I mean, if we get an exit off the freeway, I mean, that would be big box retails, things like that going in there.
It could be. I haven't done the proximity, but it, it could be in the future retail. I mean, what we're seeing is that, once you're 1,000, right now, like once you're, 1,000 feet or more away, that retail doesn't seem to be attractive. But of course, if there was a whole node, that was in Columbus or Lino Lakes, this could be an extension of that.
Okay.
I know if we win the day on 180 and 180 crosses the highway, there's a new destination there, a whole different story. I really believe in a flexible zoning because I get too trapped in a zoning sometimes. I can see along 61, if 180 became the crossover and became more powerful, that maybe more of that red should jump over to the west side of the road as well. And to keep the rest of it in a really flexible state so that it's not purely industrial and nothing else can happen there, that it's got some kind of flexibility. I keep relying on somebody else to come up with the more flexible. Mixed use has always been flexible. Industrial sets you down a certain path, but that's also something you can shift with. So I would just say it's that 180 and 61 tend to pull some of the red activity off to the west side because you can cross over there and you can build something on that node. And I can see if in the long term we win the 180 battle, then you do have the higher intensity on the west side. And what do we say about that zone now that we're just trying to placehold for something and keep it flexible?
Yeah, I mean, certainly is a placeholder, but following the adoption of the comp plan, we need to create, zoning that is consistent with this. So, I mean, I think it's not too early maybe it's a little early to kind of parcel it out, I think, we can do more study to figure out, what sort of frontages work best. But it's we're still kind of collecting the public input, but we want to then kind of lay it out there, say like, okay, what could work?
Yeah. Well, that's my only thought is that red does go west if it's 180 crosses. And if 180 gets stronger, then certainly the edge of 180 on our side has a greater potential. What do you say about that now, just to hold a place? It's a long ways out.
I'll say that we
say at this point.
Yeah, this will be a subject of, City Council workshop on the 27th, and also a Planning Commission workshop, probably in March.
So the 27th of March, you're going to have a council
27th
workshop.
of February.
February.
So the light tan that's on here, is that residential or what?
Yeah, that's the medium density residential, which is, there's no change with that one.
Okay. I'm just wondering, the two chunks of that we're looking on the map here right on 61. It seems so piecemealed instead of having, if we're looking at a future vision, I would think, we'd have a section or, like Mark's saying, along Highway 61, it's all highway commercial, not, different little pieces that I wouldn't see why we'd want any residential right along Highway 61.
You're talking about right here.
That one and then on the other side.
Yeah, I think,
Oh, here it is.
I think this one's already
The
residential.
east side, that's existing houses.
Both of them are? The north, the one at the top?
On the west side?
Next to 61?
Yeah.
Oh, can you go up a little bit, Donovan?
Yeah.
There are a couple homes in there, but not all the way down.
You're talking about this area, Ryan?
Yeah. Can you put your cursor over that, Donovan? The area we're talking about?
Which one?
If you only knew.
Just west of 61, the tan area.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's homes in here, but I think something idea around this is to create nodes, since we don't want to have each property owner with access onto 61. I don't think MnDOT would allow that. So the idea that if there's a larger mass, but also thinking that, absorption might not, accommodate that, complete uninterrupted commercial all the way down 61.
And the strength of the commercial comes in being able to come in on the parkway and then being able to come into the next feeder, because you can't cross that rail line all that many times and find a real strong corner. So I think when we talked about that, we thought there'd be an internal road somewhere between running parallel to 61, internal on that tan piece of property that would ultimately connect the two. And then, as far as I'm concerned, mixed use could continue on there, but it could also stay residential because it's harder to fit into a mixed use story, a business story, because it's so far away from its endpoints now.
So right where that tan area is, those are existing houses, and then as
Yep.
soon as the mixed use starts, that's open field right now. And then just right across from that light blue area is basically where 190th comes in, just south of there.
Yeah. That's why you have a chance to kind of develop that into something more, because it's very visible and you can cross over, and we're not stymied by the path system, the regional trail. I mean, I just like the most flexible zoning, so mixed use to me is a way to go in just any direction you want to go.
Is that what we're referring to as the industrial area then, to review
Down
mixed
south
use?
of that, I don't know, that's pushing it to something really extreme, but it's
Yeah, I mean,
still-
I don't know if there is a designation like a business mixed use, or, something like that.
There could just be an overlay, couldn't there? An overlay that says, let's hold this for the prospect of something.
Yeah, I mean, industrial gives you all these connotations and most of them are negative, and I don't think that's what we're trying to present to the property owners there, or,
Even though we're still trying to hold a fairly large chunk of large tracts so that we can do something that comes campus style to us. And that's at least a place to do it.
yeah.
Damned if I know how you actually define it at this point to hold it for a future flexibility.
23 years from now.
The real issue is whether or not, the whole thing is predicated on whether or not you get freeway access there.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
and so-
Ultimately, it's going to happen when you go down to, whatever that bridge is.
Right, exactly, but,
The 170th or 180th.
Yeah.
So the fight will be in one of those two places. Obviously, we're benefited if it happens north, because that really will.
but the point is, if it doesn't happen, it's really a mute issue, because,
180 won't become that strong.
so, be a tough one.
So along 61 in that area that's identified as industrial on the west side, do you guys have specific comments in
Yes.
a section there, south? At the corner of 180th and 61, where it's currently light purple,
Yep.
west, Donovan, right there, north and south. Do you have specific comments then along the property adjacent to 61?
Yeah, I think that should be red business. It should be reaching for everything the
I would
other
think
side
so.
reached for.
Well, I think right along 61, it'd be nice to continue that highway commercial,
Yeah.
right there, irregardless of what the
That's
rest
what
of it
he's
does.
asking.
But
This is currently residential here.
Yep.
Yeah.
You're not going to
You're
mess with
talking
that.
on the
but-
west
are
side.
those new residents or are those like 30, 40-year-old houses?
They're
Because,
built in about 93.
okay.
So Donovan, the red that's you guys have on the east side, is that general business or highway commercial?
This is general business is the future land use category.
So southwest of your handprint right now, is the recommendation general business or highway commercial?
Going straight here. Where's the other van?
I don't know how much of a difference between, general business and highway commercial there really is. I mean, I don't want to see it designated either industrial or residential. I mean, I think the use is for some type of businesses there. And obviously a huge factor is whether 180th becomes a thoroughfare or not, but irregardless, anything along Highway 61, I just don't see relevant to being residential.
And ultimately, no matter what, I think we'll be allowed to cross, the trail and continually cross over at 61 there. So it just is one of the future stronger intersections that shouldn't just be left at industrial now, but should somehow take a strip along 61 and say, I can go from 190 to 180 and connect a business zone in there.
Okay.
Well, and sewer is designated to go all the way to, or water, I mean, now the sewer's already there, it just isn't, we're We don't have authorization for it, but
So
eventually
sewer,
water will connect to Hugo, correct?
that would be the plan for like emergency shared systems.
Okay.
You know, I know we've just had so much conversation, and even on the east side of the road, we still got to talk about some of our stuff tonight. Because whatever future land use is designated part of this plan, our first application that comes in with the sewer connection to the Met Council line, we'll have to make sure that pipe is sized to serve these areas, so we're not going back and digging stuff up in the event that, well, we knew we wanted that down there, but we changed it to this or something, you know. So that's how critical that kind of stuff gets. Obviously in the south part of the city, without water supply even anywhere close, that time's coming later. But stuff's certainly around, you know, like 190th, where we've talked about some stuff. I mean, as soon as we make that first connection, those connections are so important on what pipe size it should be, where future towers should be, because we can't really tell you or recommend where that should be until this stuff gets solidified. And I just know there's been so many thoughts on what use wants, and we really need to narrow that down, because this is tied to so many different charts that are part of the submittal to the Met Council. And every time we change land use, and maybe this isn't what we want, obviously, but every time we change that stuff, that changes a series of things, and really all that stuff's got to be submitted for a June 18 submittal review.
So we should reach for the higher intensity use.
That and flexible use, if that's what I'm hearing.
Flexible. I can see that mixed use traveling 1,000-foot wide swatch on the west side of 61 going south till we hit our border. I could see that, you know, just to hold that territory as something more intense.
I'd like to speak out in defense of industrial for that. I think if we're looking to bring jobs to Forest Lake, and industry is coming back into the United States, and we're looking out into the future, I think we go after industrial jobs, high-volume jobs, good-paying jobs, and make that whole corridor industrial. That's just my opinion, but I want that. I think we got to put sewer and water in for industrial and get the jobs up here.
Except for the large distribution or large campus kinds of stories in the industrial world. The industrial world is a very flexible, almost business park kind of story nowadays, and may well be that in the future. So I want it to stay flexible. I want to have all those opportunities on these properties.
But if you say you need to designate industrial for the sake of planning.
No, it's kind of a placeholder. It's just industrial is what we've called it, but we haven't described what that means. But we need to, but you know, to Ryan's point, we need to kind of, you know, narrow down some idea of the scale of the uses so that we know what sort of infrastructure they require. You know, if they're a big water user, if they're, I mean, that's probably one of the bigger things. Well, you know, what kind of, you know, are they going to have lots of other kind of waste, you know, sanitary waste? So, but it doesn't have to be industrial.
I think if you've got a freeway hookup somewhere in the future there, that's ideal for industrial, bringing semis in there, keeping them off the roads that the houses are on, coming off the freeway, getting direct access to where they're delivering product or picking up product, getting people there, the employees up the freeway, get off on that exit. I think it'd be an ideal situation for large employers.
It would be. Isn't Hugo looking at their north edge as being much more of a commercial business strip on 180?
I'm not sure. Right now, their MUSA line goes all the way up to their northern border. So they've identified that as a growth area. I put an inquiry into, you know, to their planner last week, and I haven't heard back as far as in their website doesn't have, you know, updated material.
That's the last I'd heard. They kind of jumped residential going north and then ended up next to 180 as a much more intense commercial kind of zone. That's simply, you know, what I've heard.
If they made that move, that would certainly help support the 180th connection.
Yes.
Ryan, I need your help here, not trying to get too picky, but, you know, bringing up the industrial uses, bringing up the business uses. I was involved, not nearly as deep as you two were, but with the data center. And the huge amount of water that they would have been using. Now, how, I mean, you can't plop a 40-acre data center in here, but how does that affect calculations. I mean, how do you, you can't plan for everything, I know, but there is a great potential to put a data center in, something like this, which is modern industrial. It's not smokestacks, but, it's a computer factory chunking out there, so.
So if something that specific came in, you often hospitals will generate something like that, prisons, data center, you might specifically build a water tower in addition to what you already did for additional storage.
Okay.
Stuff like that. Certainly you could put another well down there, you'd have to have a treatment facility, or you could, by that time, if we're down in this area, you would imagine that we're close if we haven't already looped our water main, so you would have adequate water supply. We had adequate water supply where they proposed, even though we were on the edge of town.
Okay.
So,
Okay, yeah, I thought we had to run a pipe over to it or something.
well, we would have had to loop it
Would have had to
through their
loop it,
site,
okay.
but the loop was already in essence there.
Okay. So, yeah, I do agree that, the industrial, now that you bring that up, great point. I'm afraid when people hear industrial, they think smokestacks and, noise and commotion.
It's
They
the
don't think
21st
of,
century here.
they don't think of places like
Yeah.
Team Vantage that have a lot of great good paying jobs and a lot of employees there that, still it's that proximity to that freeway exit, and the farther you get away, more it would be for industrial, but how do we designate that without alarming everybody, I guess, that, it's gonna be industrial and asphalt plants, because that's not our intent.
Does this prohibit asphalt plants? Not the expert on zoning.
Well, currently ours, if you said, okay, it's industrial, we're going to go, apply our current industrial zoning, it would prohibit an asphalt plant. But there's still, that has to all be worked out. We got to write the zoning code, zoning text, for that district. And then we could specify, only these certain uses. And the more general business, could write the flexibility in, we could write in kind of like an overlay, for a certain type of use to promote it or to, allow flexibility.
Well, personally, I think I'd like to see, 1,000 feet on each side of 61 and maybe 1,000 feet on each, or 500 feet on each side of 180th designated as a retail commercial, and then the rest of it as, business industrial.
Okay. I had a few more things on the agenda, but I'm thinking we're running out of time. Related to goals and policies, and so if any commissioners have any other input, I'd be willing to take it. In your packet, there's a list of the current goals and policies that changed a little bit, just reflecting some of the current conversations around this land, for instance. And also something I did find from Hugo's comp plan update, where they had the ULI Minnesota come and do sort of analysis. In some ways, it's pretty general and general enough that actually some of the things apply to Forest Lake. So I kind of provide that for your own kind of consideration. And if you want to, get back to me or around any sort of other policy changes, I'd welcome that.
All right. Thank you, Donovan.
Donovan, you need to discuss that urban residential area as well.
Well, that's, we can. I was kind of reserving that more for a workshop item because it is related more to residential, though. But we, part of this draft plan does include this kind of hatched area, dotted area here that is called as a land use category, future urban residential. And that density hasn't really been specified. But when you say urban in this future land use arena, you're talking about, public water and sewer in the future. And of course, that could be future, post 2030, post 2040. But what really is important is identifying that, because once, like for instance, the interceptor sewer comes through, approximately right here. Well, anything east of there, you're sizing to accommodate the whole area that you ultimately want a sewer. And, so that affects everything that, be oversizing all the way through here to get beyond this, the business, could be a future business zoned area. Currently, this is a residual residential. It has a different, it's a different category. I'm sorry, it's something like residual residential that the Met Council put here with a minimum density of 1 per 10, one dwelling unit per 10 acres, to basically say, reserve this for future residential. Basically, the discussion before us is where should we draw a line to accommodate, basically this is also referring to basically the MUSA line. How far should this be to the west of, to the east of 61 during this comp plan update period, so that we know how big to size the pipes on the other side of 61. And this is kind of getting into more nuts and bolts of it, but I want to get some rough EDA feedback on this.
What's urban residential density?
We haven't qualified that.
Possibly.
We did get some feedback during our open house that people didn't like the word urban in there. So maybe they preferred future residential. Also, one property owner who owns some property in this area said he would like to develop into more like the rural residential density of maybe one dwelling unit per 2.5 acres. So 4 times that 1 per 10 density.
Do we know how much of that is actually buildable land? I mean, there's so much lowland and wetland in that area.
We actually, Bolton and Meg did just produce a basically developable land GIS layer, a map. I could pull that up, but it showed a lot more developable land than I imagine. This is a really rough analysis because I know, for instance, down here that when this was a cluster subdivision, and this is basically because they couldn't develop all of this at the time. And of course all the wetlands through here with the wildlife management area. So that is definitely a consideration, but I mean I believe there is enough highland here to have this discussion.
It's to our advantage to intensify the use, to help get everybody in the right frame of mind to prepare for a more intense use on that side,
Right.
so that we're sizing things appropriately.
Right where the hand is now on the screen is an area that's comparable to the size as Hawthorne Heights. That's all looks like highland on an aerial. That Hawthorne Heights had 66 lots. So yeah, there's pockets that you certainly can get the density if your zoning matches that, or is a preference to keep this preserved as more rural type of area,
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the debate we've heard back and forth, 50-50. And
I'm inclined to say intensify the area by virtue of zoning now and see how that plays out. Some are trying to save some green, more for agricultural than anything else, I think.
Any other perspectives at the moment?
I guess to me it would be, you look at, there is already the development just to the south, residential. I'm much more concerned about getting the commercial growth along Highway 61, but how the roads would lay out would be the biggest factor. How we're going to, what road is going to access that area, and how are we going to get a buffer between the resident and the retail commercial, and promote that development. If there's, you're going to have more than one way in and out, and I'd like to see first kind of a, how that area develops, one section after another, if it's practical to do that, because we've got plenty of other areas that have yet to develop too. So are we spending a lot of time and thought on something that isn't going to change from its general condition now in the next 20 years? And, that's what we need to answer first is it going to be relevant in the next 10 to 20 years that, we need to plan ahead for this one. Getting a pipe across Highway 61, sized properly, there isn't that much distance to oversize pipe, so I don't see that as being the big cost. I mean, when you're building a road, whether you're putting a 6-inch or a 14, 15-inch pipe in, it isn't that big a factor in it, just oversize it now. But, are we doing something that is going to affect something in the future? The 180th, I believe, is going to change. Along Highway 61 is definitely going to change. But those other areas, I don't know if there's going to be enough demand for developers to really come in and look at that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Should we move on to small area plans, Mark? I know you got somebody here for that, so.
Can that make it to the screen?
Yep, working on it right now.
I just wanted to start a conversation. This conversation takes a couple back and forths, but this is at least some kind of skeleton idea of what might happen on a piece of property. Start down on 97 and 61 on the south and travel all the way up to the clinic on the north. And what can happen with a territory like this over time? There's a variety of ownerships and a variety of businesses in play. So if you start way on the north end, I don't have the ability to do this though. You start way on the north end, and I'm looking just between the bank building and the clinic. There's this possibility, no further north yet, there's this possibility of a entry point and an interior service road that could loop in and provide a lot more value to the properties that are on the west side of that. And so if there are right-of-ways sufficient there to move through, it's a crossover on 61 as well. It provides you an internal loop road that really, I think, values up all the property that's sitting west of that. And that future land area that I've presumed to lock off, which is the gravel yard, and there's another ownership in there as well. Just saying, okay, that land might have a greater density, or a greater opportunity in the future. And if you do actually get a loop service road to it, its value goes up, and there's some 6 acres sitting there that can be worked in a variety of different ways. So it's a way of looking at that north end. When you come back going further south, where the roundabout is and you're entering into that series of businesses that are right there, that's a place for the loop road to continue on through and be kind of a cohesive internal road for the whole area. I didn't presume to try and change any businesses in that central core area. I'm not trying to intrude a whole lot in this area. I'm just saying if we had a road that fed through there internally that was more of a transition north and south, then all those internal properties become stronger. So if we did go south from there and we get to the point where we have the, just beyond Rudy's, and we have the what was Public Works but is kind of rental space now and some storage, and we have the land that travels all the way to the MnDOT line, there's about 7.5 acres sitting in there that could really well be thought of as one development, and probably best thought of as moving all at one time. Because I'm suggesting that loop road can travel now parallel some 40, 50 feet away from Highway 61 and feed both businesses independently instead of traveling through one potential development site to get to another. The square footages I put in there are really abstract. There's certainly room for 70, 80, 90,000 square feet of something. I just took more of a commercial element, call it grocery store or anything else, in the 35,000 square feet. And I went back to a more professional building, 2-story, 20,000 square foot footprint toward the south end. And then I did start to depend on this idea that we could work with MnDOT and possibly use a lot of their land for water management on all this territory. And if we did so, we'd really exercise quite the area for development, and an area that could be really advantaged by all the kind of traffic count that's there and all the visibility that's there. It's just a really strong business development node on the south end of town. And it really doesn't have too many things stopping it from being talked about at this point in time if actually you put the city property with the private ownership together and you got MnDOT to talk. If you could start talking that language right there, you've already got the entry areas worked out. I'm suggesting there'd be one more right in, right out that's just on the 61 side of that, right, splits those two developments, the 40 and the 35,000 square foot ones. And so I think you have an opportunity there to get really vital property active in Forest Lake. And it just seems like a good idea to start talking about. Some landowners have been talking about this. We certainly can begin a conversation with MnDOT, with the city, and with the landowners that are on that piece of property that's 7.5 acres. And you can actually start talking about this now if you chose to. The rest of it is a concept that tags along according to whenever its time is right. But you could take this one piece and talk about redevelopment at this stage. And that's what I'm prompting, that kind of conversation continues at this point.
Thank you, Mark. Just to be transparent, I don't know if you knew that or not, but I own all the property on the north side, so.
Yeah, I don't know how much, but I know you're in there.
Yeah, so just so everybody knows it,
And there's also this kind of feeder that goes up to the west of the clinic that has, at least there's a rite of passage to get behind the
just right away, yeah.
the strip center. I don't know if that's a right of way that has cross easement rights and it becomes vital, but right now I've kind of put it out of my mind because it's such an extraneous kind of an access point. But you can get really some solid access on and off 61. You can come to an area that can be developed all at one big piece, and you have the interest of landowners and maybe the city, and it's time to start the conversation.
Mm-hmm. Any other thoughts?
Well, I appreciate Mark's insight into this because it took a lot of work to get to this point at least, and whether it works out or not, we'll find out later, but at least there's some thought into it. Thank you, Mark.
So maybe we could head towards some informal talks with staff and MnDOT or somehow get this conversation literally moving forward instead of just language.
Oh, yeah, I've been having some conversations with MnDOT on land exchanges,
Okay.
so.
I thought you might be looking at.
Oh, no. So, that's been going on for a couple of years already. And it is something that's probably going to take a state representative at least to be involved a little bit more in that to firm that up. But they don't like to give up the property they have anyway. And
Understood.
they feel it's very vital, and I don't know, I feel like having a dirt pile as we come into town isn't the best welcome sign anyway.
And this notion works best if the city is a player in this whole story. Then we can work better with the MnDOT. So if you gave me some walking orders here, should I just simply try and generate conversations within staff and see if that pulls in a MnDOT representative and the rest? Or do you want to work it another way?
I think we need to, first off, I guess, find out, Dan's you got a lot of irons in the fire.
Well, I think at this point, we already have some conversations started with MnDOT. I could next time have a conversation with them, dust it off to see where they're at with it, but I think those conversations have been started. And it's just, I'll give myself an update of where we are kind of in that status of it with the land exchange, but I think that's kind of the linchpin in this whole thing. We've got to get that figured out. So I can definitely take that forward, but again, this isn't something that can get turned quickly. This is with MnDOT involved.
I believe we got a 5-year commitment with the ambulance right now.
Yeah, and there's that other aspect too. So once the MnDOT piece goes, there's also the leased piece. So there's a lot of things that the stars have to align for all this to happen. Not saying they can't align, and not saying that we can't do the work to start it. However, I can definitely take that MnDOT piece forward, and when I have a conversation with them,
Yeah, North Memorial invested a lot in that building, and I know it was I believe it was a 5-year commitment.
Yeah, that sounds right. I don't have the terms in front of me, though. I can't speak to that for sure.
So, yeah, we have some time to plan ahead, so, I think we have a
If I'm going
chance.
to fill out my education, though, I would come to you and we'd find out about what your discussions are for MnDOT and the rest. And I didn't know the lease terms at this point either.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have those terms. We can look into it. But again, I think this kind of hinges upon, MnDOT's response. 'Cause I think that's kind of a key piece in this whole redevelopment happening. And getting the guidance of whether they're not going to do the land exchange could definitely change how this thing would go. So I think that's kind of one of the first pieces that's in play on this one.
And your land exchange discussions are relative to this piece of property as well?
Correct.
So I'll just coordinate with Dan and understand it better as I go along.
Sounds great.
At least the conversation's going.
All right. And we are running out of time, so I think we should just skip to the end and do some updates. I think everybody's getting lined up for the council meeting. That's all right with you guys. So Chris, if you had time.
Mr. Chairman, members, good evening. I don't have any updates for you, but I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have at this point.
Well, thank you for coming tonight, Chris, and I appreciate, I know I've been able to call you at different times with questions and been very helpful, so thank you very much. Ted?
Thank you. I don't have any updates, but I'd be happy to answer questions as well.
All right. The Chamber's Business Expo is on schedule, everything's set there?
Yeah, the Chamber's Business Expo, which is called the Lakes Area Expo, it's going to be held on Saturday, March 24th at the Maranatha Church just across the border in Wyoming.
Thank you very much. All right. Any other updates from anyone?
I'll just plant 2 quick seeds. I'm still inclined to wish for 7 people on board here. And I'd also like to plant the seed about the 4th of July. One key component that keeps coming forward in terms of asking the city for assistance essentially would be start to think about whether there's any way you can generate volunteers. Volunteers, from whatever source, is probably one of the most important factors with making the 4th of July parade flow. And so that's the point I'd like to just drop here. Keep it in mind, think about it, see if there's some way that we can actually generate more volunteers to work that proposition.
And just along that 4th of July front, I did have a meeting with Jamie last Thursday or Friday just to kind of get an update as to what we're doing. So she is looking at a few options for additional activities the city could participate in or try to help lead the charge on. So we're just trying, those conversations are happening on the backside with staff. So we are making, some movement on that front. So she's close to kind of getting some projects together, some options, and when those are ready to go, we'll get those presented to the EDA here just for review.
All right. And I did also have some conversations with Jamie on that too, and working hard there. I do have an appointment to the EDA. I'm waiting for the paperwork to come back, but next meeting we'll have a new member, Josh Archer. So we'll wait till then, get him set in. So if there's no other business to bring forward, I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
I so move.
All right.
A second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.